بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت تجعل الحزن سهلا إذا شئت آمين. Okay, so for the review is pretty short considering that we don't need to go through the entire story of the Sabab al-Nuzul of Surat al-Fil. So we'll be starting from the beginning of Surat al-Humaza. ويل لكل همزة لمزة وعلى الجملة الذي يعيب الناس ويأكل أعراضهم. So همزة لمزة. There's some differences of opinions that I had mentioned regarding these two words. So they revolve around the idea of backbiting, slandering. So that's what the difference is into what the definition of these two words are. It's said that humaz or hams means to put people down, to dishonor people, to insult them, and all these sorts of different things in their presence. And lams would be to do that behind their back. Second opinion is that it's the opposite. It's also said that hams is to make ishara with your hand or with someone with your eyes. Like you're trying to make ishara with your eyes that, like you're like if someone is with a circle with their friends and some random person is walking by, so they make ishara with their hands by like pointing or just moving their eyes towards that direction so that people could laugh at that person, ridicule that person, mock that person. So that would be hams. And or it could be lam, and that lams is defined as to actually use your tongue and to use your words. It said that hams and lams are pretty much the same as well. Huma sawa. So wailul likulli humazatil lumaza. May wail, the we say destruction or woe upon every single person who is involved in hams and lams, upon every single backbiter and slanderer, or upon every single, how do you see what words he uses? Woe to every slanderous reviler, habitual defamer. SubhanAllah. Woe to every slanderous reviler and habitual defamer. ويل لكل همزة لمزة الذي جمع مالا معددا. The one who hoards his wealth and he continuously counts it. عدده, he continuously counts it. Um, يحسب أن ماله أخلده. يحسب بمعنى يظن. ظن يظن means for someone to um, Dhan is like thought, to think, to have an idea. So يظن ما أن ماله أخلده. He thinks or he believes that his wealth shall يخلده. أخلده بمعنى يخلده. It will make him be forever. It will make him like خالدين فيها, as we say. It will make him immortalize him. كلا. So كلا حرف الردع. It's negating the idea that came before, and it's asserting a new idea. So كلا, that's not the case. This person who thinks that أن ماله أخلده, كلا, that's not the case. لينبذن في الحطمة. He will be flung into the حطمة. Most surely he will be hurled into the crusher. حطم يحطم, I believe is the bab, means to pound or to crush. وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا الْحُطَمَةُ. And what will make you realize what is the hutama? And then Allah Ta'ala, He says, هي, so in muqaddar in parentheses, هي نار الله الموقدة. Um, yeah, so then نار الله الموقدة would be the khabar, and then the mubtada would be mahdhuf, which is hiya. So it is the fire of Allah Ta'ala which is set ablaze. Al-muqada, ignited. So al-muqada, the reason it has the alif lam, it's a sifa of the nar. Now the question would be that why does it have a alif lam then, considering that nar doesn't have a alif lam and mawsuf sifa have to match? Well, because naru it's a mudaf to Allahi, narullah, mudaf ilayh. Now whenever a word is mudaf to a word that is ma'rifa, so narullahi, then the sifa that mudaf word will be treated as ma'rifa as well. That's why it has the al-muqada. التي تطلع, number 7, التي تطلع على الأفئدة. So التي defining the nar. So nar, although it's not like naratun or something, right? It doesn't have the ta'ut tafnith. Nar is treated as a feminine. That's why it's al-muqadatu. Okay? So and that's why it's also allati, not alladhi. Okay, so that fire, allati tattali'u ala al-af'ida, which peers over or which mounts over and pierces hearts, al-af'ida. So this could, like I think we had read from Mufti Shafi's Ma'arif al-Quran, that a person, if they're burned in this world, they're burned alive in this world, they'll die well before the fire reaches the heart, or probably most, I'm assuming most, many of the internal organs. But Allah Ta'ala is saying that this individual, he'll be going through this tremendous pain and tremendous punishment, that they'll still be able to experience the punishment when it completely eats up their skin, eats up their muscles and their tissues and their bones until it reaches the heart. إنها عليهم مؤصدة. Number 8. Indeed, upon them it shall descend and trammel them. إنها عليهم مؤصدة. مؤصدة, it will descend and trammel upon them. في عمد ممددة, in عمد, like pillars, ممددة, مد يمد means to extend, so عمد ممددة, in ever extending pillars. The two opinions that he had mentioned regarding this was, let's see if I skipped anything, is that when the doors of Jahannam are closed, the pillars are there to block off the doorway, so that a person knows that there's only one way in and out, and that way is blocked by these amadin mumaddada, by these ever extending pillars. And at the same time, or it's the second opinion was that أَنَّ مَوْثُوقُونَ مَغْلُولُونَ فِي الْعَمَدِ, that these people, they're tied up to these ever extending pillars, that if they're ever extending gigantic huge pillars, that then they know that they have no chance of escaping from their lock, from their cell. Okay, so Surah al-Fil, I'd asked last class if you want to go to the long version, short version. You guys said the long version. So the short version this time around, it's like one page in تسهيل, which I'll just read quickly إن شاء الله. نزلت هذه السورة منبهة على العبرة في قصة الفيل التي وقعت عام مولد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. He says that this important surah, it was revealed regarding the year of the birth of Nabi صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم. فإنها تدل على كرامة الله للكعبة, and it shows the um, honor and respect that Allah Ta'ala gives the Kaaba, وإنعامه على قريش بدفع العدو عنهم, as well as the favor that Allah Ta'ala bestows the people of Quraysh, the tribe of Quraysh, by diverting their enemies away from them. فكان يجب عليهم أن يعبدوه ولا يشركوا به. So due to this, it's incumbent and it's necessary for the people of the Quraysh to recognize that and to worship Allah Ta'ala and not associate any partners with Him. وفيها مع ذلك عجائب من قدرة الله وشدة عقابه, as well as the surah tells us about um, the amazing nature of Allah Ta'ala's power, because of the whole the tuyur that came with the sijil, as well as وشدة عقابه, and the severity of Allah Ta'ala's punishment. Now, this is just in the worldly life, and of course in the hereafter it'll be far, far greater. فقد ذكرت القصة في كتاب السير وغيره. So this story, of course, has been mentioned in many authentic sources. واختصاره, the short version, is that أن أبرهة ملك الحبشة بنى بيتا باليمن. So this أبرهة, as we said, was the antagonist of this incident. He was a ruler, and he had built what he would call like Kaaba 2.0 in Yemen. So, and وأراد أن يحج الناس إليه كما يحجون إلى الكعبة, and he intended that with this new temple, or whatever you want to call it, he intended that the people should do Hajj instead of going to Mecca to do Hajj in the middle of the desert. Come to my city, come to my town. You can do Hajj over here. فذهب yeah فذهب عربي وأحدث في البيت, and then an like an Arab and a Bedouin, he came and he defecated in this house that Abraha had built. فغضب أبرهة وحلف أن يهدم الكعبة. So now this of course angered Abraha, and he vowed to destroy the Kaaba. فاحتفل في جموعه وركب الفيل وقصد مكة فلما وصل قريب منها فر أهله إلى الجبال وأسلموا له الكعبة. So he intended to destroy the Kaaba. He gathered his army, his ranks. He got his elephants, of course, which is the name of this surah, and he got all of his elephants, and he set out for Mecca. And when the people of Mecca, they realized that, oh, the enemy is approaching, they left their town, they left their homes, and they went to the mountains to seek shelter so that they could be safe from the army. And then they pretty much they left the Kaaba up to in the protection of Allah Ta'ala. وأخذ لعبد المطلب 200 بعير فكلمه فيها. And they stole from Abdul Muttalib 200 camels, and then Abdul Muttalib, upon realizing this, he decided to speak to them regarding that, meaning he wanted to get his camels back. فقال له. So Abraha says to Abdul Muttalib that كيف تكلمني في الإبل ولا تكلمني في الكعبة? How are you so concerned that how are you willing to talk to me due to your immense concern over your camels, but you don't even have enough concern about your Kaaba. That وَقَدْ جِئْتُ لِهَدَمِهَا وَهِيَ شَرَفُكَ وَشَرَفُ قَوْمِكَ. And this Kaaba, that's your pride. That's like the number one thing in your of your culture, of your people, is the Kaaba. And you don't even have and you're willing to talk to me about your camels, but you're not willing to talk to me about the Kaaba that I'm here to destroy. فقال له. So Abdul Muttalib, he says to Abraha, أنا رب الإبل. I am the owner of these camels. وَإِنَّ لِلْبَيْتِ رَبًّا سَيَمْنَعُهُ. And the house has its own owner who's going to speak up on its behalf, like how he's doing with the camels. بارك الفيل بذي الغميس ولم يتوجه إلى مكة فكانوا إذا وجوه وجهوه sorry كانوا إذا وجهوه إلى غيرها هرولة وإذا وجهوه إليها توقف ولو بضعوه بالحديد. Now this elephant, which we know from Mufti Shafi's recollection of the incident, is that his name was Mahmud. He was a gigantic elephant that could easily have destroyed something of the size and nature of the Kaaba, building wise, material wise. So, of course, now whenever they would face it, the camel, towards Mecca, towards the Kaaba, he would refuse to go. And then, if you were to face him any other direction, he would happily go in that direction. Even to the extent that these people would like whip it and hit it with something with metal and all these sorts of different things to try to force it to move, but it would not do so. فبينما هم كذلك أرسل الله عليهم طيورا سودا وقيل خضرا عند كل طائر ثلاثة أحجار في منقاره ورجليه. So while they're trying to do this, while they're trying to convince this camel to move forward and destroy the Kaaba, Allah Ta'ala sent black birds. It said that they were um, black birds, and in which each of these birds, they had three stones, one in each leg and one in the beak. فرمتهم الطيور بالحجارة. So then these birds, they let down these stones, and these stones were like instant kill. And it said وروي أنه كان يدخل في رأسه ويخرج من. Okay, sorry, I think my mom just made some noise. I was like, sorry. أنه كان يدخل في رأسه ويخرج من دبره. That it would basically go straight through the person. If it came through their head, it would fall down just completely straight through them. وقع في سائرهم الجدراء والأسقام. وانصرفوا فماتوا في الطريق متفرقين في المراحل. Okay, so and what happened with that? These people, they just ended up dispersing, and they still would just end up getting pummeled with these rocks, and they ended up dying. And it said that Abraha, he died limb by limb, as we had mentioned in Mufti Shafi's story, that he was afflicted with like a disease that just caused his skin and his organs to just like melt away, basically. And then limb after limb, he just kept decaying and growing smaller and smaller until eventually he died. So as for the actual surah, which we did not get into, that's where we're starting from right now. ألم تر كيف فعل ربك بأصحاب الفيل. This is a very famous or one of the more popular spots that people decide to read in Susi. ألم تر كيف فعل ربك بأصحاب الفيل. So of course the idgham kabir in the fa because they're the same letter, and then lam and ra have a very close makhraj, so that's why there's the idgham over there as well. Anyways, I don't know why that just came up. Anyways, ألم ترى كيف معناه ألم تعلم. ألم ترى, of course, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam was not present for this situation, correct? This was the year that he was born in. I believe, or some of the opinions that I had read was that I think Qurtubi quotes that it was like 40 or 50 days, something like that, before his birth. Okay, and just to mention it again, it's that the Arabs they would use big events to mark dates. So when I was actually explaining this story to my maktab kids, I told them, the way I explained it to them was that we would call the year 2021 the COVID year, right? So then they just use these big events to mark the dates. So alam tara bima'na alam ta'lam. So tara, when you see something, you recognize that it's happening, that it's existing, that it's so on and so forth. So alam tara, um, means that you are so well aware of this incident that took place, it's as if you've seen it. But basically, ألم تعلم, do you not know كيف فعل ربك كيف في موضع نصب فعل ربك, the way that your Lord has dealt with the people of the elephant. كيف فعل ربك بأصحاب الفيل, the way that your Lord has dealt with the people of the elephant. والجملة معمول ألم ترى. Okay. ألم يجعل كيدهم في تضليل. Okay. Did he not put their plot, كيدهم, this came up before in Surah طارق. إنهم يكيدون كيدا وأكيد كيدا فمهل الكافرين أمهلهم رويدا. So Kaid, it's their secretive, it's their plots to try to work against the Muslims. ألم يجعل كيدهم, did he not make their kaid, their plot, في تضليل, in a complete mess, in a complete disarray, in utter disarray. He says here تضليل إبطال وتخسير, like he completely, their plans, he just made them null and void. Whatever they had planned out, that definitely did not take place. تضليل. وأرسل عليهم طيرا أبابيل, and he sent upon them birds in flocks. Ababil, so طير طيور أبابيل, flocks. Now, regarding Ababil, there is some discussion. معناه جماعات شيئا بعد شيء. Just it's groups, as well as it also means just waves. One group and another group and another group. So these birds were coming wave after wave after wave. قال الزمخشري واحدها إبالة, and Jalalain mentioned a few different other, or might have mentioned the same thing, but he says that the wahid, so this ababil is the jama', the plural, and Zamakhshari says that wahiduha ibbala, whereas the majority say that huwa jam'un la wahida lahu min lafzi. Majority say that this is such a word that there is no singular for it. There's no wahid for this word. It's just a plural, which makes sense because waves, or like however you want to translate ababil, waves after waves, like hordes or flocks. That implies it's, of course, it's not singular. It implies plurality. Okay. بحجارة, where is ترميهم بحجارة من سجيل. رمى يرمي, to shoot a bow. Okay. So, or I'm sure like in modern Arabic, I'm sure it's used for like shooting a gun or something. But taramihim, to shoot a bow, they would shoot at them bihijaratin, with rocks. From min sijil, min for bayan. Sijil is baked, small rocks that were baked of hardened clay. Pelting them with stones of hardened clay. Sijil, hardened clay. Waruya. This is something that's commonly said regarding this verse. But he just says it is said. He doesn't like say it definitely that like this is like a very strong tafsir. But he says that أنه كان على كل that every rock had the name of the person which it was meant to kill. So that's something that like I've heard that a lot. Remember as a kid, I'm sure I've heard that too, but probably like some khutbah or something. But he says about ruwiya, it is said that this was the quality of the rocks, that these small stones that the birds were carrying, that they had the names of the individuals written on them. Sijil qad dhukir, he says he mentions it earlier in his tafsir, but I wasn't able to check where exactly he did that, so we could skip. Actually, let's see if Mufti Shafi adds anything. Oh man. Go to the source thing. بحجارة من سجيل. The word sijil is a compound Persian word which has the ta'arib of which has been done. It's been Arabicized, made up of two Persian words, sang and gil. Hopefully I'm pronouncing those right. The sang would mean stone and gil means clay. So they refer to ordinary or common clay rolled into tiny little balls and then baked to harden. These pebbles are not heavy or hard like rocks chipped off mountains. They in themselves do not have a devastating power. but it was Allah Ta'ala who created in these stones the high capability of explosion and blowing up even more than the bullets of a revolver. Which is okay, that's what he said. Okay, من سجيل فجعلهم كعصف مأكول. فجعلهم كعصف مأكول. And he rendered them. Thus did he render them. فجعلهم, he made them into كعصف مأكول, like eaten husk. مأكول, this is the ism maf'ul from أكل يأكل. أكل يأكل, of course, to eat. So they've been eaten up. Yani Allah Ta'ala describing their bodies as eaten up husks. HUSKS. Sorry, my allergies have kind of been acting up this week, so I apologize if I sound a little bit muffled. Over here he says, and thus he turned them into eaten up chaff. The word asf means straw, husk, or bran. Usually the asf is scattered, and when it is eaten or devoured by animals, it does not remain in the same state. This is what happened to Abraha and his army. He adds some more وفي تشبيههم به ثلاثة أوجه. And he says that there's three ways that this Allah Ta'ala is calling the people asf ma'kul. How is that? And he says that there's three different ways. أنه شبههم بالتين إذا أكلته الدواب ثم راثته. So basically, it's in the sense that it's these individuals have been completely devoured by these animals, and they're starting to decay, as well as they're useless. You know, your person, if they're taking off the husks of like some corn, you know, you care about the corn, you don't really care about the um the husks. And then he also says eaten up because it's like small animals that end up eating up they eat up the husks. So it's very disgraceful, pretty much. Surah Quraysh. Any questions regarding that so far? Surah Quraysh. He starts off with لإيلاف قريش إيلافهم رح. Okay, well, actually, one thing to mention regarding the previous surah. One, like tajweed mistake, I guess, maybe you could say that, is that normally what happens is that, especially for this word, it's very common for ja'ala, people end up putting instead of saying the fatha on the jim, they end up saying like sukoon on the jim, and then of course jim is one of the qalqala letters, right? Qaf ta ba jim dal. So whenever you qaf ta ba jim dal, when they have a sukoon, you do qalqala, you bounce on that letter. That's how a lot of people end up saying it. Faja'alahum, faja'alahum, right? But that's not the word. That's not how the harakat are. So it's faja'alahum. It's very important to say the letters clearly. I think I explained this once in Surah Al-A'la. What was the word? In nafa'at al-dhikra. People say inna fa'at al-dhikra. So they end up breaking up the fi'l, which is nafa'a. Nafa'a from like manfa'a, for there to be benefit. A lot like for nafi'. So that an individual who is beneficial, a being who is beneficial. So ja'ala is the verb. So and the fa is like the harf al for whatever the grammatical state is, but fa and then ja'ala. So you don't want to say faja alahum, which is pretty much breaking up the fi'l. You want to say faja'alahum. So you just want to make sure that fatha and the jim is clear. Okay, Surah Al-Quraysh. لإيلاف قريش, another common tajweed mistake, maybe not like the last one, but just like really, really common, is that people don't end up stretching the alif after the lam. They say لإيلاف قريش. But it's alif with a kasra and ya with a sukoon, kasra with a joining ya. So, and those match. So that means you'd have to stretch it for one alif. لإيلاف قريش إيلافهم. Where was I saying? Okay, yeah, so Quraysh. So who are the Quraysh? Now this is might be a bit obvious, but let's just read through it as he took the time out to explain it. Quraysh. هم حي من عرب الحجاز الذين من ذرية معد بن عدنان. So the Quraysh are of course a tribe of people from the Arabs of the land of Hijaz, who are from the progeny of Ma'ad bin Adnan. Ma'ad bin Adnan. إلا أنه excuse me. إلا أنه لا يقال قريش إلا لمن كان من ذرية النضر بن كنانة, except not all the progeny of Ma'ad bin Adnan are called Quraysh. It's specifically through the bloodline of An-Nadr bin Kinana. An-Nadr bin Kinana. وهم ينقسمون إلى أفخاذ وبيوت. And of course, now Nadr bin Kinana also has certain bloodlines that go through him that a person has to be part of to be considered part of the Quraysh. For example, the Banu Hashim, Banu Umayyah, Banu Makhzum, and others. وإنما سميت القبيلة قريشا. Now the reason that this, what does Quraysh mean? Is it just a name or does it have a meaning in and of itself? So تقرش, والتقرش it means to earn, to go out and to earn a livelihood and to earn money in business. So that the reason they were called this, called the Quraysh, is because these people of this particular tribe and of this area were primarily businessmen and traders. And that is what the surah talks about. إِلَافِهِمْ رِحْلَةَ الشِّتَاءِ وَالصَّيْفِ. Okay. Um, So now the surah, just to give a quick overview, it's two things basically. In these first two ayat, Allah Ta'ala talks about how He gave these people of Quraysh safety and security on their travels when they were performing business, which is why He mentioned this whole discussion about why they called Quraysh. The second ayahs 3 and 4, the second half of the surah discusses that it is due to this ni'mah, it's due to this blessing that Allah Ta'ala gave you. You're living in a very, very dangerous place. But because you're part of the Quraysh, people don't mess with you. That's a gift from Allah Ta'ala. For that reason, you should be worshipping Allah Ta'ala even more and submitting to Him and not worshipping other than Him. That's basically the breakdown of the surah. Let me just mute my notifications. Okay, great. Okay, so لإيلاف قريش. Now, okay, let's define إيلاف first. So, alafa ya'lifu means for someone to be familiar with a place, or for someone to be comfortable in a particular amongst a particular people, amongst a particular location. So alafa yulifu ilaf means for someone to be, it's a mubalagha of the same meaning, that a person is so comfortable that of course they're now when you go to of course when you go to a new place, you're a tourist somewhere, you might not have that sense of security that other people, that locals may have. You're always on your toes, you want to make sure you don't get scammed, pickpocketed, and all these sorts of different things. So it's these li'ila fi Quraysh ila fi rihlat ash-shita'i was-sayf. These Arabs, they had that sense of security, uh, although they were tourists in a sense, they had that sense of security in their إِلَافِهِمْ رِحْلَةَ الشِّتَاءِ وَالصَّيْفِ, during their travels, رِحْلَة, during the winter and summer times. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, good. So لإِلَافِ قُرَيش. Now a couple of things. Let's just go in order. Okay. Now, when were these travels? Eye number two, إِلَافِهِمْ رِحْلَةَ الشِّتَاءِ وَالصَّيْفِ. We'll come back to eye number one. رِحْلَةَ الشِّتَاءِ وَالصَّيْفِ. Their travel during the winter and summer. الشِّتَاء والصيف, the winter and the summer. It said that وكانوا ساكنين بمكة وكان لهم رحلتان في كل عام للتجارة. That these people, of course, they resided in Mecca, but they would have two yearly travels where they would go to different parts of the Arabian Peninsula, and they would conduct business dealings. So they would have one during the winter time, they would go south to Yemen, and during the summertime, they would go north to Sham. Okay, so south to Yemen during the winter time because it's warmer, and of course, going up during the summertime, so it's colder, to the area of Sham. Okay, we can skip the other opinions. والإلاف مصدر من قولك آلفت المكان إذا ألفته. So like I had mentioned, آلف يولف إلاف would be for a person to become like familiar with the place where they get that sense of security. They're not a tourist anymore. وقيل هو منقول بالهمزة يقال ألف الرجل الشيء وآلفه إياه غيره. That a person can ألف يولف, that they make others also feel safe and give them a sense of security. So لإيلاف قريش. Okay, فالمعنى على القول الأول أن قريش ألفوا رحلة الشتاء والصيف أن الله آلفهم رحلتين. It's that these people, they felt that sense of security, and it is Allah Ta'ala that gave them that sense of security and peace of mind while they were traveling. واختلف في تعلق قوله لإيلاف قريش. So now, I number one, like I said, we'll get back to it. لإيلاف قريش. What is this even connected to? You can't start off a sentence by saying في الدار, unless of course you just do like you say في الدار زيد, but that's not. So لإيلاف قريش. Um, what is this connected to? The perennial security of the Quraysh. What about it? There's nothing actually being said. It's not a complete sentence. I mean, it's not a complete sentence. لإيلاف قريش. So what is this connected to? That's where there's a couple of opinions which we'll go through now. The first is that أنه متعلق بقوله فليعبدوا. فليعبدوا in eye number 3. That it's actually connected لإيلاف قريش إيلافهم رحلة الشتاء والصيف altogether is connected to فليعبدوا. فالمعنى فليعبدوا الله من أجل إيلافهم الرحلتين. فإن ذلك نعمة من الله عليهم. فليعبدوا. You should worship Allah Ta'ala. You should be excessive in your worship to Allah Ta'ala due to this amazing blessing of security that He's given you on your travels. Okay, so the first opinion is that like how we say fit dari has to be muta'alliq to something, and then zaydun mawjudun fit dari or all that stuff, right? So over here it's saying that لإيلاف قريش لإيلاف قريش إيلافهم رحلة الشتاء والصيف is connected to the third ayah فليعبدوا. Okay, that due to your perennial security, due to the perennial security of the Quraysh, they should, and the fact that this is a huge ni'mah on them, considering that the Arab lands were what, just desert lands of heat, and it was a little water, and it was just a bunch of bandits running around, very barbaric people almost, that they would just pillage and raid, and they would highway rob like no other. But because they recognize that, this is probably something important to mention earlier, but because they recognize that, hey, you guys are the people of Quraysh, you guys take care of the Kaaba, we're not gonna mess with you. We're not gonna take your stuff. We're not gonna ransack you. We're not gonna do this and that because you guys are the honorable Quraysh. And of course, this is a ni'mah from Allah Ta'ala that Allah Ta'ala gave him this respect throughout the entire Arabian Peninsula. That's why the people didn't mess with them. That's why the people should be فَلْيَعْبُدُوا رَبَّ هَذَا الْبَيْتِ. Okay, that's the first opinion. أنه يتعلق بمحذوف تقديره بمحذوف تقديره اعجبوا لإلاف قريش. اعجبوا. Find عجيب. Find it like how amazing is this this security, the sense of security that the Quraysh have. How so the muqaddar thing, the hidden thing that the لإلاف قريش is connecting back to is اعجبوا. How amazing, how astonishing, how ridiculous, how crazy is this Ila Quraysh for the reason I just mentioned. Like it's not heard of. Like if you're gonna be traveling in Arabia at that time, like you have to stay on your toes. People are gonna come try to mess with you. People are gonna come try to rob you. But if you're from the Quraysh, that's not gonna happen. Now the third is interesting. أنه يتعلق بسورة الفيل. What is this لإلاف قريش connected back to? It's actually connected to the previous surah. والمعنى أن الله أهلك أصحاب الفيل لإيلاف قريش, which makes a lot of sense, and you can see how these two surahs are connected here. Like we're saying, لإيلاف قريش, the perennial, the constant security and peace of mind that the Quraysh have in their travels. It's connected to the previous surah in the sense that when these people tried to come and mess with you, we still granted you that security. You leave your town, we'll grant you security. People try to come to you and mess with you, we'll still grant you security. So again, just enforcing the idea of a person, the people of Quraysh should recognize that it's Allah Ta'ala that's protecting them, and that they should this should lead to increase in worship and not polytheism. Okay, so those are the three opinions. It's connected to فَلْيَعْبُدُوا, the third ayah, or it's connected to a hidden fi'il, إِعْجَبُوا لِإِلَافِ قُرَيْش, find ajib, and the third is that it's connected to the previous surah. Um, yeah, it's connected to the previous surah basically. So when people tried to come mess with you, when the Ashab al-Fil came to you to try to mess you up, we granted you that perennial security. Okay, now the first ayah, Ilaf Quraysh, it's not, it's just Ilaf is just mentioned mutlaqan. It's just general, it's unrestricted, unrestricted. Ilaf Quraysh. إيلافهم رحلة الشتاء والصيف. Their security during their travels of the winter and summertime. In that second ayah, it's now mentioned muqayyad. It is restricted. So first it was mentioned unrestricted, now it's mentioned restricted. So this, he says, ta'ziman lil amr. It's showing that there is a perennial security at all times, but think about when you're traveling, and that's when there most likely is there's like the most chance of not having security. It's Allah Ta'ala is emphasizing the fact that He still granted you security. وَنَسْبُ رِحْلَةَ لِأَنَّهُ مَفْعُولٌ إِلَى فِيهِمْ. Now, why is it? For what reason? Of course, like we know the default of words is that they're going to be marfu', right? Of asma, they're going to be marfu'. So it should be rihlatu. So for what reason is it rihlata? Is because ila fihim is the masdar. And the masdars can have fa'ils and fa'ils and maf'uls, which of course are going to be in their respective states. So rihlata is the maf'ul of ilafihim, which is why it's mansub, which is why it has a fatha. So their ilaf during their time of travel, rihla. Where'd it go? وقال رحلة وأراد رحلتين فهو قول الشاعر. Now, although the singular is used, what's intended is رحلتين. This is just and then he gives a proof a from a line of poetry in which what's intended is the plural or the dual, but a singular word is used. So it's not like this is incorrect correct grammatically. فليعبدوا رب هذا البيت. So worship the Lord, the Master of this bait, of this house. هذا إقامة حجة عليهم واستدعاء لهم بملاطفة وتذكير بالنعم. That this is, of course, Allah Ta'ala is calling to them that you've now been warned and that you should recognize what's really happening, recognize the huge bounty and blessing that Allah Ta'ala has given you. So turn to Him in worship. And of course, al-Bayt, هذا البيت is referring to the Kaaba, because it's talking about the Quraysh. But the هذا البيت is referring to المسجد الحرام. المسجد الحرام الذي أطعمهم من جوع. يحتمل أن يريد إطعامهم بسبب الرحلتين، فقد روي أنهم كانوا قبل ذلك في شدة وضيق حال حتى أكلوا الجيف. الذي أطعمهم من جوع. Um, وآمنهم من خوف. Let me see how much to mention over here. So now, أطعمهم من جوع. He fed them and saving them from starvation. الذي فليعبدوا رب هذا البيت. الذي. So الذي is a صفة for رب. فليعبدوا رب which رب الذي أطعمهم من جوع وآمنهم من خوف. Okay, so the one who alone has fed them against hunger, أطعمهم. So from طعام أطعم يطعم إطعام, to feed someone. So he is the one who fed them against hunger. وآمنهم, and granted them security, safety from. He granted them aman, some security from fear. وآمنهم من خوف, from feeling fear. Which, let me see over here. He says, ويحتمل أن يريد إطعامهم على إطلاقه، فقد كان أهل مكة ساكنين بواد غير ذي زرع، ولكن الله أطعمهم مما يجلب إليهم من البلاد بدعوة أبيه إبراهيم عليه الصلاة والسلام، وهو قوله وارزق أهله من الثمرات. وآمنهم من خوف يحتمل أن يريد آمنهم من خوف أصحاب الفيل، ويحتمل أن يريد آمنهم في بلدهم بدعوة إبراهيم في قوله رب اجعل هذا بلدا آمنا. All right, so إطعامهم, he fed them, while of course the people of Mecca were very, very, it was a land in which there wasn't very much vegetation. And he says, فَقَدْ كَانَ أَهْلُ مَكَّةَ سَاكِنِينَ بِوَادٍ غَيْرِ ذِي زَرْعٍ. There wasn't much vegetation, but Allah Ta'ala, because they were the Quraysh, because they were these honorable people of the Quraysh, who people all throughout the Arabian Peninsula trusted and respected and looked up to, these people, when they would come for their travels, when they would come to do Hajj and for Umrah and all these sorts of different things, they would bring them food. Right? They would provide for them. It was because they wanted to respect them, they wanted to honor them, they wanted to give them something. As well as he says that بدعوة أبيهم Ibrahim alayhi salam, when he built the Kaaba and he made dua for the future generations that are going to be residing around the Kaaba, he says وَارْزُقَ أَهْلَهُ مِنَ الثَّمَرَاتِ. Feed the inhabitants of the city from different fruits and different vegetation. وَآمَنَهُم مِّنْ خَوْفٍ. It could mean that of course he protected them from the Ashab al-Fil. That's the first thing that he mentioned. The second thing is that, again, the dua of Ibrahim alayhi salam, رَبِّ اجْعَلْ هَذَا بَلَدًا آمِنًا. Third to last page, bottom of the third to last page of first juz. رَبِّ اجْعَلْ هَذَا بَلَدًا آمِنًا. Oh Allah, oh my Lord, make this a safe city. Okay, so آمنهم من خوف. وقد فسرناه فيه في موضعه، أو يعني آمنهم في أسفارهم لأنهم كانوا في رحلتهم آمنين لا يت or third opinion that he's mentioning is that what I had mentioned earlier is that these people are treated well, they're safe during their travels because Allah Ta'ala kept them safe during their travels, in a time that, or in an era in which traveling was like a very, very dangerous thing to do. And I already mentioned that. The fourth opinion, he says that آمنهم من الجذام فلا ترى بمكة مجذوما, that there was no leprosy in Mecca, yet you would not find any leper in the city of Mecca, so he saved them. وآمنهم من خوف, يعني from physical illnesses like this. قال الزمخشري, he mentioned التنكير في جوع وخوف لشدتهما, sorry, that جوع, خوف, the tanween, that, or the fact that it's not ma'rifa, it's indefinite, is to show the severity, that it's very encompassing. It's not any specific type of ju or khawf, that it's referring to many, many different things, and that Allah Ta'ala is the one who provided them security, or fed them from being from utter starvation, as well as from uh, unbearable fear, as that's how we could translate it. Utter starvation, unbearable fear. Okay, so 846, Surah Tul Ma'un. It's a Surah Ara'ita. All right, let's see how fast I can go. I was trying to finish it 30th juz before Ramadan. Um, how many more classes do we have until then? Probably, okay. We have one, maybe three, right? Maybe three. Okay. I'll have to ask what to do with the Ramadan schedule. I'm not sure if Maulana Sahib wants me to continue during Ramadan, and then we could have different hours or something. Because we're not gonna be able to do like 8 o'clock Chicago time. So I'll see, or maybe we could just stop classes for like a month and then pick up back after. So I'll ask Maulana about that, and then I'll let you guys know, inshallah. Um, Honestly, I'm also just kind of down to have like one or two extra sessions next week if you guys are available, and then we could just try to finish this out, finish 30th juz up. But we'll see. Nothing. We'll talk in the group chat, inshallah. So Surah Al-Ma'un. أرأيت الذي يكذب بالدين ذلك الذي يدع اليتيم. So he says Surah Al-Ma'un. He says the surah that chastises as irreligious and mean all those who withhold from the helpless and needy the most basic forms of aid. So Ma'un, aid, or like neighborly help. Okay, just help would be a good word. Okay, so have you seen the one who أرأيت الذي, have you seen the one يكذب بالدين, he belies he does takذib, he calls it a lie. بالدين, there's two different tarjumas, if I hopefully if I understood it correctly. Oh no, I think that was for, oh no, I think that was for Surah Kafirun, sorry. Lakum dinukum waliyadin. There was like a couple of different opinions over there, so I think I might be mixing that up. The one who belies the religion. Okay, just simple, keep it simple. أرأيت الذي يكذب بالدين. Have you seen the one who belies the religion? فذلك الذي يدع اليتيم. And this is the same one who repels the orphan. فذلك so ذلك referring to this person who belies the religion. He's also the one الذي يدع اليتيم, the one who repels the orphan. He does what's the word that he brought up? يدفعه, that he just repels him, and he does it very harshly and very with anger. Actually, it is. Actually, I wasn't wrong. Deen, it could mean two different things. It could be religion, or it could be compensation for one's deeds. Okay, compensations, jaza, the Arabic word jaza, and I'm translating it as compensation for one's deeds. So have you seen the one who belies the compensation for their bad deeds? Like he doesn't think that he'll be taken to task for his bad deeds. فذلك الذي يدع اليتيم, and he's the one who's going to be repelling the orphan, the one who's treating the orphan harshly. يدع اليتيم ولا يحض على طعام المسكين, nor does he, and he will not urge others of feeding the poor, the indigent. ولا يحض, he does not encourage. على طعام المسكين, he doesn't encourage people to feed the miskin, the orphans. Okay, let's see what, maybe I didn't skip anything. So فذلك الذي يدع اليتيم, he says repels the orphan, and this could mean two different things. That upon feeding them and being nice to them, or giving them their due rights, which they are responsible over. So, a common thing that Allah Ta'ala discusses, and which was common amongst the culture of the Arabs at that time, is that if a person's parents, there's a small child whose parents were to pass away, that and the parents had left X amount of money for that child. Now, let's say like a a distant family member was now responsible for that small child, they would take that money for themselves and they would not give it to the child. Okay. And even when, or if let's say the child was like a little bit older, he just had a few, maybe just like a couple of months, couple of years to wait until he could retrieve that money and use it as his own, the guardians would usurp that wealth and they would take it for themselves. So يدع اليتيم could be referring to that. Or it could just mean just overall mean harshness. Okay, وبهذه الجملة جواب معنى that والمعنى انظر الذي كتب دين تريد فيه. So now, what is the connection between these first three ayahs and the first ayah? Like, what is a bit obvious, but انظر الذي كذب بالدين تجد فيه هذه الأخلاق القبيحة والأعمال السيئة. That if you look at someone who is belying the deen like this, you'll also find in him many different qabih characteristics and qualities, some very many very ugly qualities, as well as evil deeds. وإنما ذلك لأن الدين يحمل صاحبه على فعل الحسنات وترك السيئات. And that is because the deen, it should, what it's supposed to do, it's supposed to lead someone to doing many good deeds as well as leaving all these bad deeds. فمقصود الكلام ذم الكافر وأحوالهم, to rebuke the disbeliever and his many of the different qualities and states of his. فويل للمصلين الذين هم عن صلاتهم ساهون. So wail, like we said, wail could be woe, or I mentioned in two other opinions. I'm forgetting what the second one is. I think the third one that I had mentioned was a place in Jahannam. فويل للمصلين. So woe to the people who pray. صلى يصلي, someone who's praying salah. Woe to the people who pray. Now, of course, it's not just left like that. It's a specific people who are praying, quote unquote. الذين هم عن صلاتهم ساهون. The people who are negligent regarding their salah. Those people who pray, but they are very negligent and they're only doing it because they're in public. They don't care about it in private. Woe to those people. Okay, so that's why normally when we read the surah, we say فَوَيْلٌ لِلْمُصَلِّينَ الَّذِينَ, that we connect about the ayahs. Although it's fine to make waqf there as well. It's fine to stop at ayah number 4 and then just say them separately too. Okay. فَوَيْلٌ لِلْمُصَلِّينَ الَّذِينَ هُمْ عَنْ صَلَاتِهِمْ سَاهُونَ. Those individuals who, regarding their salah, عَنْ صَلَاتِهِمْ, not, oh, I'll mention that in a bit, but عَنْ salat, regarding their salah, they're sahun. They're, like how we say sajdatul sahu, that it's the sajda that you make due to your own negligence because you made a mistake. That's how these people's attitude is towards salah. That they're very negligent about it. If they even pray it at all, they'll always push it. They'll always do it in the, like, do all of their other tasks before they think about, hey, I need to perform isha or something. May Allah Ta'ala save us from being amongst those people. إن هذا نزل في عبد الله بن أبي بن سلول المنافق. So it said that this verse is revealed regarding the famous munafiq Abdullah ibn Ubay bin Salul. والسورة على هذا نصفه مكي ونصفها مدني. So that would mean that half of the surah would be Makki, and these verses regarding this Abdullah bin Ubay bin Salul is Madani. Of course, because the Munafiqun were in Medina, right? There wasn't any fake Muslims during Makkah, because why would there be any fake Muslims when they're being oppressed and tortured and stuff, right? No one wants to fake that. So this is mentioned by قاله Abu Zayd as-Suhaili. So um, someone has mentioned that these two verses are referring to the رئيس المنافقين Abdullah bin Ubay bin Salul. وذلك أن ذكر أبي جهل وغيره من الكفار أكثر ما جاء في السورة المكية، وذكر السهو عن الصلاة والرياء فيها إنما هي من صفات الذين كانوا بالمدينة لا سيما على قول من قال إنها في عبد الله بن أبي، وقيل إنها مكية كل. Now some say that this is regarding. Okay, so the debate that's happening right now is that he's saying that there's some people who say that half of the surah is Makki and half of the surah is Madani. Of course, these ayahs that are talking about salah and being negligent about your salah and being and only doing it for show, only doing it so that people see that you pray, but you don't do it at your own house and stuff like that. That's a very madani quality, right? Though, like all that's something that the madani ayat talk about. That a person should be make sure that they're praying properly, and and this whole idea of nifaq and people being hypocrites and not performing a'mal, not performing their deeds properly. It's a very madani theme that's going on, criticizing these people. So that's why some people say that this half of the surah is Madani. Now, the others will argue that إنها مكية كلها, that the entire surah is actually Makki, وهو الأشهر, and that's actually the more famous opinion, as he says, ونزل آخرها على هذا في رجل أسلم بمكة ولم يكن صحيح الإيمان. Um, he says that, like I said, this is the more famous opinion, as he's saying that the whole entire surah is Makkiya, and this is regarding a person who just wasn't regarding people who would accept Islam while they were in Mecca, but they weren't Sahihul Iman, that they just weren't like what does that mean though? Like how does that? It's interesting. But he's that these people weren't like fully committed. They didn't have proper iman. But I think the same ishkal would still stand though. Like I don't see how this would answer the thing, because that it still gives the theme of it being a madani 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 ayat. And like I had said, there wasn't a lot of people, if any, who were just accepting Islam for no reason. Like the only reason people were accepting Islam in during the time of Makkah is because they truly, truly believed. I don't unless there's some examples that I'm missing out on that I can't recall right now. It doesn't seem like I'm also not trying to critique him. Just let me just get that out the way as well as for the recording. I'm just trying to wrap my head around it. Okay, so I don't want you guys to think that like, man, this is Ibn Juzay right now. So he obviously knows what he's saying. I just have to dig more into this, inshallah. وقيل مدنية. Some say that this entire surah is مدنية. والسهو عن الصلاة هو تركها أو تأخيرها تهاونا بها. So now, what does it mean for someone to have عن صلاتهم ساهون? What does that mean for a person to have sahu regarding their salah? Their salah is that وهو تركها, that they completely leave out their salah, or they delay it so much because they just don't care about it. They're negligent about it. وقد سئل رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم عن الذين هم عن صلاتهم ساهون. The Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, when he was asked regarding this ayah, قال الذين يؤخرونها عن وقتها, the people who delay it so much that they have to pray, that they basically make qada of it, that they're not praying it in their time, they have to make qada of their salahs. قال عطاء بن يسار, watch this is amazing. الحمد لله excuse me. عطاء بن يسار, he says that الحمد لله الذي قال عن صلاتهم ساهون. All praise be to the one who has said عن صلاتهم ساهون, that they're negligent regarding their salah, يعني performing it and making sure that they perform it on time. ولم يقل في صلاتهم ساهون. Subhanallah. And he did not say during their salah they're negligent. Okay, because that would take out most people. Okay, 99% type people. So this is a very genius statement of his. الذين هم يراءون. راء يرائي from مفاعلة, that they're الذين هم يراءون هو من الرياء. أي صلاتهم رياء للناس لا لله, that they're الذين هم يراءون, that they're doing it out of due to their riya, that they're just doing it so other people could see them and that they could pray in public but they won't pray in private type of attitude. يمنعون الماعون فيه وصف لهم بالبخل وقلة المنفعة للناس, and they prevent aid. These are the same individuals who are preventing aid. Okay, ويمنعون الماعون. okay, يعني وفيه وصفا لهم بالبخل وقلة المنفعة للناس, يعني these are people who they're preventing aid, يعني they have the quality of stinginess as well as not benefiting other people and no humanitarian work is taking place. في الماعون أربعة أقوال. الأول أنه الزكاة. Now this is as Mufti Shafi says, I'll read that in a minute. Hopefully, I might go a minute or two over time, so I apologize for that. But basically, it's four different opinions. The first is that it's for zakat, or it's referring to wealth, or it's referring to water. ماعون is referring to water, or أنه ما يتعاطاه الناس بينهم كالآنية والفأس والدول والدلو والمقص. Or it's like these random little things that a neighbor might need to borrow every now and then. Now and then. Okay, so those are the four opinions. Now let me just read what quickly what Mufti Shafi says, and then we could end there. Where'd it go? يمنعون الماعون and refuse to give even small gifts. The word ma'un literally means any small or petty thing. وَيَمْنَعُونَ الْمَاعُونَ they prevent others from giving these small and petty things to help each other. And idiomatically, it refers to small household articles of common use, such as an axe or farming equipment, cooking pots and pans, which at the time of need, neighbors need to borrow from one another. Anyone who is unwilling to lend such small items is morally a very miserly and mean person. However, in the current verse, Ma'un, so this is Mufti Shafi on page 891, he says that Ma'un is taken in the sense of zakah. Zakah, like how we pay the yani the 2.5% that we pay on the entire wealth. Majority of the commentators, Sayyidina Ali ibn Umar, Hassan al-Basri, Qatada, Dhahak, radiallahu ta'ala anhu ajma'in, and others, they hold the view that Ma'un implies zakah, and this is mentioned in Malhari. The threat of fawailul lil musal. Okay, so the threat of whale, right? It's yani it's saying that a person is going to be entering into Jahannam. فَوَيْلٌ لِلْمُصَلِّينَ الَّذِينَ هُمْ عَنْ صَلَاتِهِمْ سَاهُونَ الَّذِينَ هُمْ يُرَاءُونَ وَيَمْنَعُونَ الْمَاعُونَ. All that's connected to whale, right? All that's connected to whale. Now, how can a person, if they're not doing these small little nafil acts, how is that worthy of getting Jahannam? Does that make sense? So this is an important qaida to remember. If a person is not doing nafil thing, the definite, very definitions of things like nafil and stuff is that if a person does a nafil act, it's encouraged, it's looked like it's good, it's looked up upon, I guess you could say. But to not do them, it's not looked down upon. Like you can't blame a person for not doing a nafil act, correct? So and likewise, if you can't blame a person for not doing a nafil act, that would mean that a person is not worthy of punishment for not doing a nafil act. Therefore, they're not worthy of getting Jahannam for a nafil act. So now, if a person is not doing these small little things, like stuff like how you're saying the lending small items, is that encouraged? Of course not. Is it? But is a person worthy of punishment because of that? No. So that's why he's saying that it can't be referring to the ma'un can't be referring to this lending out small items because the the ayat are necessitating like a severe punishment. And that's a nafil thing, therefore a person is not going to have severe punishment. Therefore, he says it means zakat. That was my whole explanation for that. Um, So now, why is the word ma'un being used here? And I'll end with this pretty much is that if a person's not even willing to pay their ma'un, if a person's not willing to give out the ma'un, like small little items, like a person needs water, a person needs salt, a person needs a pot and pan to cook with, like how is that person going to be willing to pay their 2.5% as zakat, right? 2.5% as zakat. So the traditions purport to say that these people are so narrow minded that they are not willing to make the least bit of selfless sacrifice for the welfare and well being of others. They are morally mean, low, and miserly in the extreme. Therefore, they do not pay their legal their zakat as well. Thus, the threat of punishment in hellfire is not on account of failure to do one's neighborly acts of kindness, but for failure to pay the legal alms, the zakat, and perhaps for the extreme miserliness. Okay, inshallah, I'll end there. Sorry for going to a few minutes over time. سبحان الله بحمده سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته